Consider the current state of our world. Yes, there's all of the external things happening, but let's look at our internal state. As if it wasn't enough to be keeping up with news, many of us are also worrying about our own well-being, how to pay our own bills, how to resolve our own dramas at work. Yet, hoping to unwind, in the midst of all of this, people might scroll on social media or listen to another podcast, just to end up learning more about all of the suffering that goes on. But somehow this all seems appropriate to consume because we feel like we are being, educated by watching the news. In reality, though, people find they only end up feeling worse, and then their mind is always ruminating about something because it's filled with so much chaos. As a result, not only are they constantly changing their mind about what to do, totally indecisive, but they're also not being present with life, to the point where it feels like we are talking to a zombie when we try to have conversations. People are so caught up in what they're thinking, what they've learned about, what they have to do next, that they don't even listen anymore. Instead of actually listening when someone is talking to them, they are judging what the other person is saying and putting it through all sorts of filters. Does this fit with my belief system or what I learned in school? I think this person's point of view is wrong. I believe in this, etc. So how often do people actually listen? When was the last time you spoke to someone who truly listened to you? How rare it is to listen. How refreshing it is to talk to someone and simply feel that they are really there. Most people aren't there. They are thinking about what is next, worried about what's for dinner, worried about how to make more money. How beautiful it is to simply have someone be present and unfiltered with you. Naturally, many people don't like to hear this, but the truth is, our minds are like untamed monkeys. So if our minds are constantly changing and thinking one thing in one moment, another thing in the next, how are we supposed to know the truth? How are we supposed to know what values are right, whose side to take, what ways to act, if we are constantly changing and unreliable? At one moment, we might commit to practicing meditation, but 2 weeks later end up quitting. We might want to eat healthy, but then later on say, what's the point, and eat junk food again. The reason we lack continuity, a sense of consistency, is because there is a harsh reality that most people don't want to accept. And the harsh reality is that we don't know ourselves. As a result, thousands of different voices inside of us try to convince us that we do know ourselves. I am referring to the I's, the me's within us. I want to eat healthy is later replaced by an I that says, I want to eat chocolate. I want to go on that trip is replaced by, I'm too scared. Every time there is a different I inside of us, controlling us, saying something, we are essentially operating as a different person. Maybe it's a desire, a feeling, a thought, and these I's constitute the ego, the multitude of me's that keep us suffering and mechanized. In fact, these egos run quite deep and are very deceptive, which means often we may not realize they are even controlling us. As long as we don't accept that these egos are within us, we will continue chasing one thing after another, always searching for the next thing that will finally give us answers. The only way we can truly be consistent and stable with our direction and actually change the world is through erasing all of these I's. When we dissolve these egos, what is revealed is our inner stillness and our inner guidance. Only when this noise is absent does wholeness remain, because that is our true nature, which I will touch on in a bit. So now, maybe all of this sounds a little unnecessary. Why worry about eliminating my egos when I have my family to take care of and my career? Why not have just a little bit of ignorance here? Well, yes, we don't have to do this inner work, and we can enjoy the ignorance. But then our karma builds up over time, and we find ourselves suffering the consequences big time, instead of really living up to our potential and understanding the truth of life itself. We reach a point where we question, why am I not happy? I made money, I traveled, and I'm not happy. Where did I go wrong? This is because we didn't work on revealing our true happiness, and the effects of our ignorance came around. Instead of dealing with these defects, we kept escaping, thinking that postponing this work was the right thing to do, when in reality, it always has been and always will be the priority. What can be serious for a man in prison who is condemned to death? Only one thing: how to save himself, how to escape. Nothing else is serious. So only when we work on dissolving these egos do we begin to really follow the guidance of our heart instead of the noise of our intellect. People say, follow your heart and you'll be happy. But this is quite near impossible because the ego is covering it up. The joy and guidance and love from our heart is immensely suffocated. Hence, we end up unhappy. Sure, we gain pleasure and gratification because maybe we date someone attractive or make good money, but happy? No. The empty feeling inside continues because the ego always wants more. So the point is that we need to go within ourselves to experience what is actually real, working on these egos. As long as we have the filters of the ego constantly swapping and changing, it's like we are walking around the world with multicolored, ever-changing glasses on. So when these go away, these filters and egos, what remains is clear perception and genuine happiness. So in this video, I'm not aiming to preach a certain belief or theory. There are plenty of those that you can learn about on the internet. My aim is to have us practice and learn specifically for ourselves. Instead of adding more noise into the mix, we need our own internal experience. When we acquire our own direct knowledge from experience, we know with our hearts. In her book, The Voice of Silence, Helena Blavatsky says, "Before the soul can see, the harmony within must be attained, and fleshly eyes be rendered blind to all illusion." This means that to attain truth, we leave the noise of the external world, close our eyes, and go within ourselves. True knowledge is what we know from our heart because we've experienced it with our very own consciousness. That's what we are covering on this channel: how to eliminate the illusions and undesirable elements to go within ourselves. This is not theorizing with our minds, it is knowing from our hearts. And in order to do this, we must experience and descend into our egos that are blocking the truth and what is real. We must look at the I's and me's within ourselves and understand them. To descend like this is crucial, because if we try to ascend into happiness without addressing what is blocking us from it, any joy we experience will be short-lived and superficial. So we must learn what these barriers are within us. In this video, we will explore how to effectively work with meditation, astral projection, and ultimately with our heart in order to progress in this work and achieve that which is true happiness and love. At the end, I will give you several practices to actually experience and learn for your own self, opening up your own heart, instead of me giving you more information on how to be happy. So before we get into the details here, let's briefly remind ourselves of our true nature, which I've spoken about in previous videos. You've probably tasted your true nature when being lost in the present moment, maybe playing your favorite sport, writing a script, or simply being. When we are free from thought in this pure awareness, that is our true nature, our inner master, the being. But as you know, this is polluted with worries, fears, and all of those egos in our consciousness. And this is how we become distanced from our true nature. These egos can even define our typical level of being, and they go quite deep. We need to understand that there is a spectrum to our level of being, and to ascend to higher levels of being, we need to understand and go beyond our lower levels of being. See, at the higher vibrations, we have virtues such as charity, love, peace, high vibrations. At the lower levels of being, we have vices like animalistic desire, violence, envy, and Truly, the more we look at these deeper egos, we realize they become horrifically subhuman, and these vices need to be transformed into virtue. That is our process for achieving happiness. Like, as a kid, I used to see women as natural, beautiful creations of nature that they are. As I got older, I will tell you, I started seeing them in more animalistic ways, and this is why this work is really a process of undoing, of returning to innocence. You can feel this in your own body too, because we actually feel lighter, even formless, when we are in those higher vibrations. Like maybe when you were in pure love, you might have felt like you were even walking on air. But we feel much heavier, darker, complex in our body when we are in those egoic states. So, consider humanity's average level of being. Truly, it is humbling. Lust, envy, greed, materialism, desire, these things run our lives and blind us to what is actually true. So currently our consciousness is too blocked by these egos, these intricate networks of me's and I's, for us to be able to keep going deeper and understand ourselves more. But as we continue getting rid of these blockages and eradicating egos, the consciousness opens up more and more, allowing us to eliminate more egos even further. For instance, maybe someone has egos of anger or violence inside of them. This anger is a vice, and it is within the lower worlds of this person. If through meditation, this person were to observe and understand and eliminate this ego through alchemy, they would transform their vice of anger into the virtue of charity. And as they do this, they are brought towards that which is real happiness. This is how we can use meditation as a tool. We can concentrate on something specific that is manifesting and learn about it and get rid of it. And this is how we open up our heart, that which has the guidance that the noise of our intellect doesn't have. Obviously, this is really important to do, so later on in the video, I will go more in depth on this when we cover the practices. So that's meditation, and aside from that, we can explore deeper, especially through astral projection when we go to bed. Yes, by doing dream work and astral projection, we can acquire remarkable self-knowledge and learn things that we otherwise would have searched for endlessly in books and videos. Some people might not be familiar with astral projection. We will cover this very briefly. If this is something you'd like to go much more in depth on, I linked some resources in the description below. But this will be a good overview for your self-development. So first we need to consider how just as there is an external world, all of the physical sensations we experience and perceive, there is our internal world. The external world is a reflection of our internal world. This means that if you want to learn about the external world, you actually go within yourself. Through astral projection, we go within ourselves and explore the world, and it is entirely internal. It's just like the physical world, but it is within us. Recall any of the dreams you might have had in the past. That was you in the astral world. Now maybe you were unconscious and the experience was highly subjective and you didn't even understand what was going on, but nevertheless, that was the astral. Think about it. Consider a time when you were dreaming. Clearly, you were in a certain environment. So what if you realized that you were dreaming and then could explore this environment and then find out you actually have the whole world at your fingertips? So really, whether we are conscious of this or not, all of us leave our physical body and enter into the astral plane when we sleep at night. So if we happen to gain awareness while we are in our astral body, while the physical body still sleeps, we can explore the internal worlds. As above, so below. Obviously, this is a bit easier said than done. It takes patience, practice, and a very open mind. Some people think if they astral project, it'll be a perfect and happy experience, but we need to think about how in the physical world, we use telescopes or rocket ships to explore what is infinitely above us, and we use microscopes and submarines to explore what is infinitely below us. And just as this is in the physical, in the astral, there is also this infinite spectrum from high to low. You could call this the spectrum between heaven and hell. Naturally, the higher dimensions are what we want to experience. We want to raise our consciousness to those levels, but since our consciousness is bottled up in our egos, we can't do this right away. So in order to ascend, we must descend. That is the beauty of exploring the astral. We can actually see our egos in our lower worlds. These egos might manifest as creatures, monsters, people, and seeing these helps us to understand ourselves and eliminate those things. We can reflect on what those monsters are trying to tell us and accept them. Now, some people might react with fear to the idea of seeing their inner monsters, but really, this confrontation is exactly what we want. We want to understand our egos, not run away from them. The more we do, the more we can ascend and awaken our consciousness, increase our level of being. So fear is just more ego that wants to stop you from ascending. As you can see, this makes astral projection an essential practice. And the key to doing this is within our heart. This is because we navigate the astral world from our heart. As our physical body rests, our intellect is mainly turned off. For instance, let's check out this diagram. When we are going throughout the day, there is usually all sorts of activity in our minds. You know this. When we go to sleep at night, all of this activity, which is energy, frequencies, settles down, and we can access intuitive insight. So clearly we would want to embrace periods in which those I's and me's aren't clouding up our mind. As our mind is silent, we can explore ourselves and learn from the heart. Again, this is all a brief overview, but if you want to really go more in depth on this, I recommend the resources that I've put in the description. But essentially, likely you will find that the more you open your heart, the more you will astral project. The more you astral project, the more you know yourself. And the more you know yourself, the more egos you eliminate, which brings you closer to the true happiness in your heart. So hopefully that's a helpful overview how we can work with astral projection and with meditation and open our heart. So now let's get into the practices for this video so that we can actually get experience with these things. Now, before going into these practices, I should mention there is a fundamental practice to all of this that I'm not touching on in this video. Truly, the basis of all of this lies in sexual transmutation. We can't eliminate our egos and awaken our heart without sexual transmutation, because it is the foundation of everything. Nothing overpowers the fire of sexual energy, and we want to harness that energy if we want to awaken our true essence. This is such a core subject matter, requires a full explanation, so I'm not going to get into it in this video, but I highly recommend. I've put a resource to learn this in the description below. Now that we've covered that, let's get into the practices so that we can open the heart and have more effective meditation. Let's cover the heart first here, because this will help with meditation itself. And the first thing is charity. This is required for opening the heart. If we sacrifice our egos in exchange for love, we feel this in our heart. Like, think about a time when you gave someone a gift. How did that feel? Were you feeling low, heavy vibrations of desire? No, you were feeling the lightness and joy of giving, of love, of charity. Or maybe at some point you were really angry at someone, but instead of lashing out at them, you did their dishes or gave them a hug. Yes, you might have missed out on the pleasure of gratifying your anger, but what you gained in return for your sacrifice was timeless. It was the experience of love. This is how we can sacrifice ourselves. So the next time you feel your envy or self-pity or anger boiling up, don't identify with it. Instead, sacrifice this part of you and act out of genuine love, and then bathe in the ineffable peace that follows. In this way, we want to smile in the face of adversity. If we feel frustrated or challenged by someone's negativity, this means we have egos inside of us that are boiling up to the surface, and that is precisely what we want, because that gives us the opportunity to sacrifice them. If those egos didn't come up, how else would we be able to see them and starve them? Obviously, this is a radical transformation of how we see the world. Instead of trying to control our environment, we welcome the things that bring our egos up to our attention. These opportunities help us starve our egos and feed our soul. In the words of Samael Aun-Weor, charity is conscious love. The fire of charity develops the chakra of the heart. Now let's talk about music. If we connect to music from our soul, our heart opens up. Now, obviously, a lot of music is out there to listen to. I linked a playlist in the description below for some music that I personally recommend. And really try to avoid the music that is popular today. Listen to the works of the great composers, Schubert, Brahms, Debussy. The music of today can feel fun to listen to, but really it stimulates our lower levels of being. For example, you know how egos feel heavier, like anger or lust. See where you feel this. We feel it lower in our body, in our lower energy centers. It feels heavier. It feels physical. Now, we are drawn to these sensations because they give us quick hits of pleasure and stimulation. But the problem is that the more we feed that, the more we become attached to our egos and the physical world. A lot of the popular music today is based on lust, desire, greed, and this feeds our lower levels of being and our egos. Really, most of the popular music today is satanic. People might laugh at that, but look at all of the symbols of the people at the top of the music industry, and you'll see this for yourself. We are so used to multitasking. Oh, I'll play some stimulating music while I do this thing. We've forgotten how to be present, how to just be. And then we wonder why we aren't happy. The truly great works of music will teach us real meaning. Don't be surprised if when listening to divine work like this, you start to cry, because it's just so beautiful. That's okay. We've gotten so caught up in stimulation and pleasure, and real music isn't that. It's love. We need to learn how to love. So I highly recommend listening to the great works of Brahms, Beethoven, Chopin, Liszt, etc., because this music actually connects us with the love in our heart. It might take a bit of patience to really register the divine nature of it, but that's okay. This is how we feed our spirit and not our ego. So again, I linked a playlist down below if you want to listen to music that genuinely is divine. Okay, so now let's briefly enter into some meditation practices. I will give 3 practices here. The first practice is how to meditate on a specific ego, because this will really help with self-knowledge and eliminating the parts of you that you don't want anymore. So I'll just outline how to do this, and then we'll briefly cover the other 2 types of meditation. First off, just, get ready to meditate, sit comfortably and relax. And then next, breathe in with some pranayama. Pranayama refers to controlling the breath in a gentle way to just get your energy inwards and upwards. The breath is our life force, and through pranayama, we bring this energy of our life force within ourselves to prepare ourselves to concentrate. Now, in the third step, we just want to concentrate on a specific ego. Maybe you continuously find yourself suffering from something in specific, in certain situations. Concentrate on this. For example, maybe someone tends to feel really envious about another person. In this meditation, we would just sit with this feeling, shine our awareness on it. We don't do anything in this meditation. We don't exert effort to fight this ego. We simply allow it to come to us and be with it. The only way to go beyond such negative feelings is to stop resisting them. We might extract some insight from ourselves as we do this. This form of meditation is really helpful because we are finally accepting something that we struggle with. That's how we can go beyond it. We must observe without evaluating. So then the fourth step is, once we've sat with this ego for some time, we can pray to inner divinity to eliminate this if we like. Through prayer, we really connect with our heart. Now, some people might wince at the idea of praying, but all we are doing is calling upon our innermost consciousness to help us. Really, the depths of our consciousness are so infinite, it's truly a shame to not take advantage of this. Again, we aren't trying to use our intellectual mind. Prayer is not done with the intellect. We are simply working with our heart to really live in the most true way to ourselves. Through really connecting with our heart, we can actually transform ourselves in ways that our thinking mind could never do. So now with step 5, at this point, you can choose to end the meditation or you can continue it. To continue, you can simply sit with your inner stillness if you're really enjoying the piece, or you can vocalize a mantra, or you can just simply meditate however feels right to you until you are ready to finish. So that's a brief layout of this transformative type of meditation. If you want a guided meditation for this practice, I linked a video in the description below that I've found to be quite helpful. So that's the first type, meditating on an ego. The next type we will cover is simply doing a mantra. So we'll do a heart mantra here. By vocalizing a mantra, mentally or verbally, we can vibrate that chakra and activate it. For the heart, we use the O mantra. This means we sit down to meditate and vocalize the vowel O, like this. O. And just keep repeating this mantra. You can do this out loud, or you can do it within yourself, or a mixture of both. In this practice, we just concentrate on the heart and energize it. As we feel and concentrate on this, maybe we find ourselves later on doing a better job of listening to our heart. Maybe feeling blockages start to go away. Maybe having more vivid out-of-body experiences. So this is a direct and foundational mantra to just focus on the heart. And if you want, you can obviously check out many other mantras for different purposes, but this will definitely help with the heart. Now let's get into the third type of meditation. To finish this off, this is just more of a general meditation practice, because in the others we have more of a particular object of focus. And with calm abiding, we just relax and prepare ourselves as usual to meditate, and then simply sit with our awareness and just unite with inner stillness. We stay in observation instead of involving ourselves with the thoughts of the mind. Of course, as we abide here, there may be many thoughts coming up. It doesn't matter. We are simply calmly in the stillness as we watch these go by. It's like we are the infinite sky watching the clouds go by. This is how we strengthen the connection to our true nature. And ideally, we do this throughout the day. So this is a really helpful practice to tune into this. So I hope these 3 practices are really helpful. This is how meditation can really help us become much more true and happy. Maybe this seems like a lot to you because there are different ways of meditating. To me, this felt a little overwhelming at first because there wasn't just one specific type of meditation. But we don't want to just practice one way of doing it or have a schedule. Even when it comes to meditation itself, we still need to follow our heart. Maybe one day we feel like just meditating with our inner stillness, calm abiding. Then later on, we might want to chant a mantra. And then we might even sit down one time to meditate, but notice our mind is absolutely restless. In this case, maybe it's not right for us to even meditate in the first place, and we're better off like going on a walk or something. So We don't want to turn these practices into a specific routine with time limits and plans. What matters is that we show up every day, even if there is some spontaneity. I've found that meditating 3 times a day to be most effective. During each session of meditation, I might just feel like a 15-minute practice, or maybe I feel like sitting down and meditating for an hour or more. And since I'm meditating at different points of the day, each session feels different. A meditation in the morning will feel different from a meditation at night. That's okay. The energies change. As we do these practices, we need to lay off of our expectations. It is very common to approach things thinking about what we need to get out of it. But the meaning of life is the present moment. And that is precisely what meditation connects you with. We don't want to meditate trying to reach a destination. Essentially, we're intending to be with our awareness at the end of the day. That's why all of these practices, we're focused on working with our heart. The intellectual mind doubts a lot of this. So if we practice within a rigid structure, we stifle our capacity for spontaneous insight and really being present. So this is how we can disintegrate our egos, open our heart more, strengthen our connection to our inner stillness, and really enjoy life. In the words of Master Samael, the lotus of the heart develops with meditation and prayer. Okay, now that we've covered meditation, we have the fundamentals down for daily practice. But outside of these practices, going throughout our day, it's possible we end up unconscious or distanced from our heart. Maybe we start overthinking, feeling insecure or self-pitying, and we don't even realize it. This is why I talked about this in my last video on despair, because often when all of this presents itself, it leads into some very dark territory if we don't catch it. So we need to be in a mode of self-observation throughout the day, being the observer instead of the victim in the noise. Plus, we can do check-ins throughout the day. We can just assess our level of being and ask ourselves, honestly, what is my level of being right now? We don't need to have a specific answer, try to force anything. We just want to reflect on our psychological state. And if we find that we happen to be in some negative energy, that's okay. In that case, we just want to breathe, recenter, relax the body, and be absolutely present. It's easy to think we need to be doing something, constantly productive, or planning the next thing. But in reality, nothing we do matters if we aren't conscious and present. That is timeless. Anything else is conditional. So we just want to focus our attention onto the task at hand. What we want to avoid is leaking energy into egos that don't serve our higher purpose. So let's finish up with one more practice. The last thing I will say here is to try to live from your heart. Many of us don't actually even allow ourselves to just try. We think it's irresponsible or something because we have to be mature citizens, adults. In reality, to not follow your heart is what is really irresponsible, because then what are you following? The ego? Other people? And how are you supposed to be a better person if you're following the ego? So the first step is to allow yourself to actually just try. Then you can start recalibrating your internal world and stop getting swayed by everything that happens outside of you. Start to listen and see what happens. It might seem like the guidance is really obscure. You can't tell if it's noise or if it's your heart, but just start trying and it will get better with time. This means be a kid, follow your childlike excitement, and use your energy towards things that raise your vibration. Remember, we are trying to ascend. If we are feeding energy into egos and desires, we are fueling the very forces we are trying to eliminate. So let yourself laugh, be lighter, pet your dog with real, genuine, pure, magnificent love, and just try to be with your heart. In the words of Gurdjieff, Laughter relieves us of superfluous energy, which, if unused, might become negative, that is, poison. Laughter is the antidote. So really just give it a chance. Commune with your inner stillness and try to listen. All right, those are the practices to help you open the heart and meditate. Of course, there are many other tools at your disposal, and hopefully this gives you some momentum. We've covered a lot in this video: astral projection, the heart, meditation, and yes, while it's important that we descend into our egos in order to transcend them, this doesn't mean we need to be feeling negative. We're striving towards inner calmness. Even if we are presented with egos that intimidate us or seem very real, they aren't real. We can remain calm within and keep remembering ourself, our true nature. We don't need to resist and try to fight, because truly, in the depths of our innermost consciousness, we are invincible and pure. So simply be and accept what is there. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this video is helpful. If you have any questions or areas you want to go more in depth on, just let me know in the comments. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace out.